Millionaire saw little boy selling candy for his sick mom. What she does next will melt your heart. It was a bright, hot morning in a small town where the streets were already bustling with people going about their daily routines. Among the crowd, a small boy, no older than 8 or 9, walked slowly along the sidewalks, carrying a worn-out basket full of colorful candies. His shoes were too big for his small feet, and his clothes were patched in several places, showing signs of constant wear. Despite his young age, his eyes carried a seriousness that most adults would envy. He wasn't just walking to sell candy, he was walking with a purpose that weighed heavily on his little shoulders. Every morning, the boy woke up before sunrise, careful not to wake his mother. She had been sick for many months, her body weak and fragile, lying in bed most of the day. The boy had watched her struggle silently, never complaining, never letting her see the tears that formed in his eyes. He knew he had to help. His father had passed away when he was very young, leaving him and his mother alone. The boy had learned quickly that life did not wait for anyone, and sometimes it demanded courage far beyond one's age. He carried the basket on his arm, moving from one busy street corner to another. The candies in the basket were not expensive or fancy, but they were carefully chosen. Each packet was wrapped neatly, tied with a small ribbon. The boy knew that presentation mattered, that even a little care could make people notice him. He remembered the first day he had sold candy, how nervous he had felt standing under the scorching sun, hoping someone would buy even one piece. He had counted every coin meticulously, dreaming that one day, those small coins would turn into enough money to help his mother recover. The town was full of people rushing to work, shops opening, and vendors shouting to attract customers. Some people passed the boy without a second glance. Others smiled kindly and bought a single candy, dropping a small coin into his hand. Each coin was precious. Each coin was a step toward his goal. The boy had memorized the streets, the times when people were most likely to stop, the shops where friendly faces often lingered. Despite his exhaustion, he never gave up. He had a small notebook that he kept hidden in his pocket. In it, he recorded every coin he earned, every packet he sold, and every kind word someone had offered. It was his way of keeping hope alive, his way of believing that his hard work mattered. His mother, meanwhile, lay in their tiny home, a small room with peeling paint and a single window that let in the morning sunlight. She was wrapped in a thin blanket, her body frail, her breathing shallow. She had always been a strong woman, but the illness had taken its toll. The boy would sometimes peek through the doorway, watching her sleep, wishing he could take her place, wishing he could make the pain go away. He often whispered to himself, "Just a little more, just a little longer. I will take care of you." The love he felt for his mother was fierce and unwavering, the kind of love that made even the hardest days bearable. Selling candy was not easy. The boy often had to deal with curious and impatient people. Some children laughed at him, calling him names or trying to grab the candy without paying. Some adults ignored him, too busy with their own lives to notice the boy struggling in the sun. But he had learned to stand firm, to smile politely, and to keep moving. He had no choice but to be strong. Every time he felt tired or hungry, he would look at the small photo of his mother tucked into his notebook and feel a renewed sense of determination. She was his reason for being, his reason for enduring the long hours under the scorching sun, his reason for walking streets that seemed endless. That morning, the boy made his way to a busy corner near a small park where families often stopped. He set his basket carefully on a low wooden crate, arranging the candies neatly so that each color and ribbon caught the sunlight. He took a deep breath and tried to appear cheerful, waving at the passers-by with a bright smile that hid the exhaustion behind his eyes. A few people stopped, picked a candy, and handed him coins. Some spoke kind words, asking how he was and if he was helping someone. The boy replied politely, "Yes, for my mother." And then he would smile again, tucking each coin carefully into his pocket. Even with the small successes, there were moments when he felt the weight of the world pressing on him. During a short break, he sat on the curb, looking at the coins in his pocket, counting them again and again. He whispered to himself, "Not enough yet, not enough yet." He thought about the hospital bills, the medicines, the doctor visits. He thought about the nights when his mother struggled to breathe and how helpless he felt. But then he remembered the look on her face when she smiled at him, weak but full of love. That smile gave him strength, a courage that no hardship could take away. As the day went on, the sun climbed higher and the streets grew hotter. Sweat dripped down his small face, his hands sticky from the candy. Yet he refused to give up. He walked the streets again and again, moving his basket from one corner to another, speaking politely to every person who looked at him. Some offered words of encouragement, some ignored him completely. Every interaction taught him something, made him stronger, and reminded him that kindness, no matter how small, existed in the world. At one point, a group of children played nearby, kicking a ball back and forth. One of them ran over and accidentally knocked the basket over, scattering the candies across the pavement. The boy froze for a moment, his heart pounding. Tears threatened to spill from his eyes, not just from the incident, but from the constant struggles of his life. But he took a deep breath, picked up every candy carefully, and rearranged them as best as he could. The children apologized, and he nodded, forgiving them immediately. He could not waste energy on anger or sadness. There was work to be done and hope to hold on to. Later, as the sun began to lower, casting long shadows across the streets, the boy finally made his way back home. His feet ached, his body was tired, and his clothes were damp with sweat. Yet in his pocket, the coins jingled softly, a small but powerful reminder that his efforts had mattered that day. When he opened the door to his small home, he was greeted by the weak but warm smile of his mother. She looked at him with tired eyes, but there was pride and love in her gaze. He knelt beside her, showing her the coins he had earned. Her eyes glistened with tears, and she whispered softly, "You are my little hero." "Thank you, my love." The boy smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment that went beyond the coins in his pocket. He knew that today had been a step closer to helping her, a step closer to a life where she could recover, and he could be just a child again, free from worries. That night, as he lay on a thin mattress beside his mother's bed, he whispered promises to himself and to her. He promised to keep going, to keep fighting, to never give up. He promised that one day they would have a life where she could smile without pain, and he could walk without the burden of survival pressing down on him. The night was quiet except for the faint hum of the city outside, and for a moment he allowed himself to dream. He dreamed of health, of laughter, of happiness. He dreamed of a day when love and kindness would outweigh the hardships they faced. And in that quiet room, filled with faint light and quiet hope, the boy and his mother held onto each other, bound by love, resilience, and the courage to face tomorrow together. Even in the midst of struggle, even when the world seemed harsh and unkind, their hearts carried a warmth that could not be broken. For the boy, every sunrise brought a new chance, every coin a small victory, and every step a reminder that love could move mountains, even for someone so small, standing alone in a busy, uncaring world. The next morning, the boy woke up with the same determination as before. The sunlight streamed gently through the small window of their tiny home, illuminating the worn walls and the thin mattress where he and his mother slept. He could hear the faint sound of birds chirping outside, and it reminded him that life continued, whether he was ready or not. His mother was still resting, her breathing shallow but steady. She smiled weakly at him when he entered the room with a small piece of bread in hand. Her smile, though faint, gave him courage. He knew he had to keep going, no matter how hard it was. He dressed quickly, tying the worn shoes tightly around his small feet. The basket of candy had been restocked the night before, neatly arranged and ready for another day of sales. The boy picked it up carefully, making sure not to tip any packets over. Each candy represented hope, each coin a chance for his mother to get better. He walked out of the house and onto the streets that were already alive with movement. The smell of freshly baked bread, coffee, and the distant sound of children laughing filled the air. Despite the hardships of life, the world still carried small joys, small beauties that the boy often noticed in quiet moments between his work. He moved from corner to corner, offering his candies to anyone who passed. Some people smiled and bought a packet, others shook their heads and walked on without even looking. It was tiring and sometimes disheartening, but the boy never allowed himself to feel defeated. He had learned long ago that life was rarely easy and that every small effort counted. By mid-morning, he had sold a few packets, enough to bring a small smile to his mother's face later. He counted the coins in his pocket discreetly, imagining how each one would help her buy medicines or pay for another doctor visit. Meanwhile, a car slowly rolled down the street. It was shiny and new, its polished surface reflecting the bright sunlight. Inside sat a woman who carried herself with quiet confidence and grace. She was a successful businesswoman, known in the city for her sharp mind and her philanthropic work. She had been traveling for meetings, but something in her heart had prompted her to take this quiet street instead of the busy main road. Perhaps it was the peaceful morning air she craved, or perhaps she didn't know why, but as she drove slowly along, her eyes caught sight of something unusual. The boy stood near a park, under the hot sun, with a small basket in front of him. He looked exhausted, his small frame shaking slightly from the effort of carrying the basket and standing for hours. Yet there was something in the way he held himself, a quiet strength, a determination that seemed to shine through the tiredness. The woman watched him for a moment, her heart stirring. There was a story behind those eyes, she could tell, even from a distance. Something about the boy's courage and focus made her pull the car to the side of the road. She stepped out, feeling an inexplicable pull to know more. As she approached, the boy noticed her but didn't move away. He had learned that some strangers were kind, while others were indifferent, but something about this woman seemed different. She smiled warmly and said, "Good morning, young man. May I buy some candy?" Her voice was gentle but carried authority, and the boy felt a strange sense of comfort. He nodded shyly, picking up a packet and handing it to her with careful hands. She handed him a generous amount of money, more than what a packet cost. The boy blinked in surprise, unsure if he should accept it. This is too much," he said quietly, but the woman shook her head. "It's not too much," she said. "I see the effort you are putting in and I want to help." She crouched slightly to be at eye level with him and asked, "Are you selling these candies for yourself or someone else?" The boy hesitated for a moment. He wasn't used to talking about his life with strangers, but something about her presence made him feel safe. Slowly, he whispered, "For my mother, she is very sick. I want to help her get better." His small voice trembled, but there was pride in it too. The woman's eyes softened, and she reached out, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. She could see the love he had for his mother, the responsibility he carried at such a young age. "Tell me about her," she said softly. The boy described his mother's illness, the hospital visits, the medicines, and the nights when she struggled to breathe. He told her about the bills that piled up and the little money they had. Every word he spoke was filled with sincerity and hope. He did not complain, nor did he cry. He simply spoke the truth of his life as much as a child could carry. The woman listened quietly, her heart aching at the thought of a young boy facing so much. When he finished, she smiled at him gently. "You are very brave," she said. "Most people your age would be afraid or sad, but you keep going. That is something very special." The boy blushed slightly, unused to praise, and nodded. She thought for a moment, then reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. She handed it to him and said, "Take this, use it to help your mother and don't worry about the cost. You are doing more than anyone could ask of you." The boy hesitated again, staring at the envelope in awe. He opened it carefully, counting the money inside. His eyes widened and he looked up at her, voice trembling with emotion. I can't thank you enough," he stammered. The woman shook her head with a gentle laugh. "You don't need to thank me yet," she said. "I want to see you tomorrow, too. There is more I can do, but first, take this and give your mother some relief." The boy held the envelope tightly, feeling a warmth spread through his chest that he had not felt in a long time. For the first time in months, he felt hope that things could get better. He waved at her shyly as she walked back to her car, and she waved back, her smile leaving a lasting impression. As he watched her drive away, he felt a mixture of surprise, gratitude, and excitement. This encounter was unlike anything he had experienced before. He returned home as quickly as he could, eager to show his mother what had happened. When he entered their small room, she was sitting up, adjusting the thin blanket around her shoulders. Her weak smile turned into a surprised expression when she saw the envelope in his hands. "What is this?" she asked, her voice filled with curiosity and hope. The boy handed it to her, explaining everything, the kind stranger, the generous money, and her bravery that inspired him to keep going. Tears welled up in her eyes as she carefully opened the envelope. The money inside was more than enough for her medicines and even allowed for some extra help at the hospital. She looked at her son, her heart swelling with pride and gratitude. "You are my hero," she whispered softly. "Even more than this stranger, you have the courage to care and to fight every day. I am so proud of you." The boy smiled, feeling the love and warmth he had longed for. That day, their small home felt brighter, the struggles a little lighter, and the world a little kinder. Word began to spread in the small town about the boy and his courage. Neighbors whispered among themselves, some secretly sending coins or small gifts to help, inspired by the story of a young boy caring for his sick mother. The park where he sold candy became a place of kindness, where strangers began to notice the small acts of bravery that children like him carried quietly. Days passed, and the boy continued his routine, but now with a renewed sense of purpose. He still walked the streets under the hot sun, still faced challenges and indifferent faces, but he did so with hope that kindness existed in the world. And that morning encounter with the businesswoman became a memory he held on to, a reminder that even in difficult times, people could care, and miracles could happen when least expected. By the end of the week, the woman returned, stopping by the same corner to check on the boy. She brought a few supplies, some new candies for him to sell, and more encouragement. She even promised to help his mother get the medical care she needed. The boy could hardly believe it, but he trusted her because she had been kind and genuine, showing him that some people were willing to make a difference in someone's life without expecting anything in return. That afternoon, as the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the streets, the boy returned home. He counted the coins and carefully stored them in his notebook. His mother looked at him, her eyes full of gratitude and love, and whispered, "You've brought hope into our lives." The boy smiled, knowing that hope was the most powerful gift of all. He promised himself that he would continue working hard, never giving up, and always believing that life had a way of rewarding courage, love, and determination. And so, the boy's story of struggle began to change. The kindness of a stranger had entered his life, bringing hope where there was despair, and reminding him that even small hearts could inspire great change. For the first time in a long while, the boy allowed himself to dream, not just of helping his mother survive, but of a future filled with love, care, and a world where kindness and courage always mattered. The morning sun rose gently over the small town, casting warm light over streets that were slowly coming to life. The boy woke up with the same determination as always, but today there was a quiet excitement in his heart. Yesterday's encounter with the kind woman had changed something inside him. For the first time in months, he felt that there was more than just struggle in the world. There was hope, and hope could make even the heaviest burdens feel a little lighter. He dressed quickly, tying his worn shoes and adjusting his clothes that had seen better days. His small hands carefully carried the basket of candy, each packet neatly wrapped, just as he always did. But today, something was different. He walked with a little more confidence, a small spring in his step, because he knew someone out there had noticed his effort and had chosen to care. Even though his mother was still sick, even though life had not changed overnight, he felt that a brighter day was coming. As he reached the usual street corner near the park, he noticed something unusual. The woman from yesterday had parked her car nearby, waiting for him. She waved warmly, and the boy felt his heart leap with surprise and joy. She smiled as he approached, saying, "Good morning." "How are you today?" The boy blinked, trying to find the right words, and finally said, I am fine, ma'am. Thank you for asking." His voice was small but polite, and she nodded, understanding the quiet strength behind it. She handed him a small bag filled with new candies, all brightly colored and carefully wrapped. "These are for you to sell today," she said. "I thought you might like some fresh stock. I also brought something else for your mother." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope with money. The boy's eyes widened, and he felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. He held the envelope tightly, unsure how to thank her. I don't know what to say," he whispered. The woman smiled gently. "You don't have to say anything yet. Just promise me one thing: you will keep taking care of your mother, and you will never lose hope." "I will return again tomorrow." The boy nodded eagerly, a mixture of gratitude and disbelief filling his heart. She left him with the new candies and the envelope, and he quickly set up his basket, feeling more motivated than ever. As the day went on, the boy noticed a change in the way people treated him. Perhaps it was the bright new candies, or perhaps it was the quiet confidence that now seemed to surround him, but more people stopped to buy from him. Some left small coins without taking candy, saying, "Keep it for your mother." Others offered kind words and encouragement, telling him he was doing a wonderful job. Each small act of kindness lifted his spirits and made him feel that the world was slowly becoming a better place. The boy worked tirelessly, moving from corner to corner, offering candy with a polite smile. Even when the sun grew hot and his small body ached, he never complained. He thought about his mother, her weak smile, and the hope in her eyes. Every coin he earned now seemed even more valuable, not just for the money it represented, but for the feeling that he was not alone. Someone out there believed in him, and that belief was stronger than any exhaustion or pain. By midday, the woman returned, watching from a distance as the boy interacted with people. She noticed the careful way he handled the money, the polite way he spoke to customers, and the patience he had even with children who teased him or knocked over his candies. She was impressed by his courage and dedication, and she knew that a child like him deserved more than just encouragement. He deserved a chance to live without the constant worry of survival. Later, she approached him once more, kneeling down to speak at his level. "You have done very well today," she said. "I am proud of you, but I want to do more than just give you money for candy. I want to help your mother get the care she needs, and I want to make sure you can go to school too. No child should have to work like this alone." The boy's eyes widened in shock. No one had ever offered him something like this before. His small hands trembled as he whispered, You would do that for us?" She nodded with a warm smile. "Yes. But you must promise to keep being the kind, brave boy you are. I cannot promise a perfect life, but I can promise to help make things a little easier." The boy's chest swelled with emotion. He had never imagined that life could be so kind, that someone could care so much about him and his mother. He felt a mix of disbelief, excitement, and overwhelming gratitude, and he nodded vigorously. "I promise," he said, his voice steady despite the tears forming in his eyes. When he returned home that afternoon, he ran to his mother, unable to hide the excitement on his face. "Mother," he called. She looked up from her bed, her weak eyes widening in curiosity. The boy placed the envelope in her hands and told her everything. How a kind woman had noticed him, how she had given him money for medicine, and how she had promised to help them in the future. His mother's hands shook as she held the envelope, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Oh, my brave little boy," she whispered. "You have always been my strength, but now I see that others see your courage too. We are not alone anymore." The boy smiled, feeling a warmth in his heart that he had not felt in a long time. For the first time, he allowed himself to believe that things could get better, that kindness could enter their lives, and that they could face the future with hope rather than fear. Over the next few days, the woman continued to visit. Each time, she brought supplies, medicines, and more encouragement. She made arrangements for the boy's mother to see a doctor regularly, covering the expenses she could not afford. She even spoke with local schools to ensure the boy could attend classes without worrying about work. The boy's life, once filled only with struggle and hardship, began to change in ways he had never imagined. The community began to take notice as well. People who had once ignored the boy now offered help in small ways, buying candies, giving extra coins, or leaving food for the mother. The park where he sold candies became a place of compassion, a reminder that even the smallest acts of courage could inspire kindness in others. The boy's story spread quietly but powerfully, showing that perseverance and love could touch hearts and change lives. One afternoon, the woman took the boy and his mother to the hospital, arranging for a thorough checkup. The mother received proper treatment, her illness carefully managed, and the boy stood by her side, holding her hand with quiet strength. He watched the doctors and nurses, feeling a sense of relief and hope he had never known before. He realized that the world could be harsh, yes, but it could also be wonderfully kind. And sometimes, the kindness of one person could create ripples that touched many lives. As the weeks passed, the boy began attending school regularly. He learned to read and write more confidently, made friends, and even helped others who were struggling, just as he had once been helped. His heart, once heavy with worry, began to fill with joy and purpose. The love and care of the woman had given him more than just financial help. It had given him a chance to dream, to grow, and to live a childhood that he had been missing for so long. One evening, as the sun set over the small town, the boy sat beside his mother on their modest balcony. The sky was painted with hues of orange and pink, and for the first time in months, the world felt peaceful. "Mother," he said softly, "do you think life will always be this hard?" She smiled, placing her hand over his. "Life will have its challenges, my love, but it will also have kindness, hope, and people who care. You are proof of that, and now we can face anything together." The boy nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and determination. He knew that their journey was not yet over, that challenges would still come, but he also knew that they were no longer facing life alone. They had hope, love, and the generosity of someone who believed in them. That belief, he realized, was more powerful than any hardship, more enduring than any struggle, and more precious than any coin he could ever earn. And so the boy continued to sell candies, not just for survival, but as a symbol of perseverance, courage, and the power of kindness. The woman continued to check on them, guiding them and supporting them quietly but effectively. Their lives, once defined by struggle and worry, were now filled with hope and possibilities. The boy had learned that even the smallest heart, carrying the heaviest burden, could touch the lives of others and inspire change. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, the boy's mother grew stronger. Her health improved steadily, and the bond between mother and son became even deeper, strengthened by the trials they had faced together. The boy, once just a child struggling alone, became a symbol of hope and courage in his community. People admired him not just for what he did, but for who he was, a boy with love in his heart, determination in his spirit, and hope in his eyes. And through it all, the woman watched from a distance, her heart full of satisfaction and quiet pride. She had entered their lives with a simple act of kindness, but the impact was far greater than she could have imagined. The boy's courage had inspired her as much as her help had inspired him. Together, their story became a living reminder that love, compassion, and determination could change lives in ways that money alone could never measure. The days passed quietly but steadily, and the small home of the boy and his mother began to feel different. There was warmth in the air, not just from the sunlight that entered through the thin curtains, but from the hope and love that had slowly filled their lives. The boy woke up each morning with energy and determination, carrying his basket of candies with a little more spring in his step than before. Life was no longer just about survival. It was about growth, hope, and the small victories that made each day meaningful. His mother, too, was changing. With the careful treatment arranged by the kind woman, her health improved little by little. She could sit upright for longer periods, her laughter came more easily, and the shadows of illness that had once clouded her face were slowly replaced by a soft glow of recovery. She often watched her son with a mixture of pride and gratitude, amazed at how much strength he carried at such a young age. Even during difficult moments, when her body still ached or her energy wavered, she never let her spirit fade. The boy had given her courage, but the kindness of others had allowed her to heal. One bright morning, the woman returned once again. She had brought with her not just medicines and supplies, but also something that would change the boy's life forever. She knelt beside him and said, "I want to help you attend school full-time. You deserve to learn, to play, and to grow without having to worry about work every day." The boy's eyes widened. School had always been a distant dream, a luxury he could not afford while trying to care for his mother. Now it seemed real. He nodded eagerly, a mixture of excitement and disbelief spreading across his small face. The next few days were a flurry of activity. The woman spoke with teachers, arranged for school supplies, and made sure the boy had a uniform. The community, inspired by his courage, offered additional support, food, small donations, and words of encouragement. The boy was amazed by the generosity of people he had never met before, and he realized that life could be kind in ways he had never imagined. Each morning, he walked to school with a bright smile, his basket of candies left safely at home for another time. For the first time, he felt like a regular child, free to learn, play, and dream. At home, life also began to feel lighter. The mother's health continued to improve, and she was able to stand, cook simple meals, and care for herself in ways she could not before. She often sat beside her son in the evenings, listening to him share stories of his day at school, proud of his progress and heartened by his happiness. "You have given me a life again," she whispered one evening, tears of joy in her eyes. The boy smiled, realizing that their struggles, though hard, had strengthened their bond and opened doors they had never thought possible. One afternoon, as the boy finished his lessons and returned home, he saw the woman waiting for him. She had brought a small gift, a notebook, new pencils, and a letter. The letter explained that she had set aside funds for his mother's long-term treatment and education, ensuring that neither of them would have to worry about basic needs anymore. The boy's heart swelled with gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you," he said softly, his voice trembling. The woman smiled, her eyes kind. "You don't need to thank me. Just keep being brave and kind and help others when you can. That is thanks enough." As weeks turned into months, the boy continued to thrive in school. He learned to read and write fluently, discovered new subjects that fascinated him, and even helped younger children who struggled, just as he had once struggled. His life, once filled with hardship and worry, was now filled with learning, friendship, and the joy of childhood that he had longed for. The woman continued to check in, guiding him gently, supporting him quietly, and celebrating each small victory along the way. The mother's recovery was steady and remarkable. With proper care, rest, and love, she regained her strength. She could walk without assistance, cook meals for herself, and even spend time in the garden, something she had not done in years. She often watched her son, amazed by the courage and dedication he had shown during the hardest days of their lives. She realized that their journey, though difficult, had also brought them closer and taught them lessons of patience, resilience, and the power of kindness. One day, the boy decided to share his story with the community. He spoke at a small gathering, telling people about his mother, the struggles they had faced, and the small acts of kindness that had changed their lives. His voice was steady, his words sincere, and his message powerful. People listened quietly, some with tears in their eyes, inspired by the courage of a small boy who had faced hardships far beyond his years. The story reminded everyone that even in a world filled with challenges, hope and kindness could make a real difference. The woman, who had been quietly watching from the back, felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had entered their lives with a small act of compassion, but the ripple effect had been extraordinary. Not only had she helped the boy and his mother, but she had also inspired an entire community to care more, notice more, and give more. The boy's courage had shown that even the smallest hearts could create great change, and she knew that he would continue to touch lives in ways she could only imagine. Months later, the mother, now strong and healthy, held her son's hand as they walked through the park where he had once sold candies. They paused for a moment, looking around at the familiar streets that had once been filled with struggle. The boy smiled, thinking of how far they had come. No longer did he have to worry about survival every day. No longer did he have to bear the weight of the world on his small shoulders alone. They had hope, security, and a future filled with possibilities. The boy's story became known throughout the town. People admired him for his bravery, his love for his mother, and his determination to never give up. He had become a symbol of hope and courage, showing that even in the face of adversity, love and perseverance could prevail. His life, once filled with uncertainty and struggle, was now filled with laughter, learning, and the joy of childhood. The mother often looked at him with tears of gratitude. "You have not just saved me," she said one evening, "but you have shown me the meaning of hope, love, and courage. You are my miracle." The boy smiled softly, holding her hand gently. He knew that their journey was still ongoing, that life would always have challenges, but now they had something far stronger than fear. They had each other, and they had hope. The woman continued to stay in touch, celebrating milestones with them quietly but meaningfully. She attended school events, helped with important decisions, and always reminded the boy to stay kind, humble, and brave. The boy listened carefully, learning that success was not just about surviving, but about helping others and spreading the kindness that had once saved him. Years later, the boy, now a young man, would often look back on those early days with awe. He remembered standing under the hot sun, carrying a small basket of candies, worrying about his mother, and feeling the heavy burden of responsibility. He remembered the kindness of a stranger, the generosity of a community, and the love that had never left him. Those memories became a guiding light, reminding him of the strength that lived within him and the power of hope. The mother, fully recovered and strong, often told her son stories of their past struggles. She reminded him of the courage he had shown, the resilience he had demonstrated, and the love that had carried them through the darkest days. They laughed together, cried together, and celebrated life in ways they had never imagined possible. Their bond, forged in hardship and strengthened by kindness, remained unbreakable. And so, the boy who had once walked the streets selling candy to save his sick mother became more than a story of survival. He became a story of hope, courage, and the power of kindness. His life, transformed by love and compassion, became a living reminder that even in the harshest circumstances, the human spirit could rise, persevere, and shine. The woman who had entered their lives quietly, with no expectation other than to help, watched from afar with pride. She had given them support, but she had also witnessed something extraordinary: the resilience of a child, the unwavering love of a mother, and the magic that happened when people cared. Her small act had created a life-changing ripple, proving that kindness, courage, and love could truly change the world, one heart at a time. In the end, the boy and his mother thrived. Their small home was filled with laughter, learning, and the kind of peace that comes from knowing you are loved and supported. The boy continued to grow, not just in knowledge but in heart, understanding the importance of generosity, empathy, and courage. He never forgot the woman who had believed in him, and he carried her lessons forward, helping others whenever he could. Their story became a source of inspiration in the town. Children and adults alike learned that even the smallest act of kindness could make a tremendous difference. The boy and his mother had faced hardship and despair, but through love, courage, and the generosity of others, they had found hope, healing, and happiness. Life, they realized, was not measured only by struggles endured, but by the love shared, the kindness received, and the hope that never dies. And so, in a small town that once overlooked a little boy with a basket of candies, two lives were transformed forever. A boy and his mother, once bound by struggle, now flourished in hope. Their hearts, full of love and gratitude, carried the knowledge that kindness could change lives, courage could overcome hardship, and hope, when nurtured, could light even the darkest path.